Thank you very much. I thought that I should have a press conference here in New York because the question of freedom of religion or belief is quite contentious, that it is quite central to all of the human rights instruments and human rights values. Throughout my 5 years that I have been on this mandate, I have worried because I feel that some very big human rights issues like the question of conversion has also found controversy within member states, though in my belief and through reading of all the reports of my predecessor and quite clearly reading of the ICCPR as well as the Human Rights Declaration, it is a very basic right. Secondly, the question of freedom of expression and freedom of religion and the interface, I would say, between the two mandates has been made into a problem rather than as a complement. The Special Rapporteur on Racism, the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and myself have sat together. We have given joint reports, first the freedom of racism, the Special Rapporteur on Racism and myself, a joint report on the whole question of defamation of religion, and we concluded that defamation of religion indeed was a warning sign in some cases that may not form human rights violation, but it could bring into play some of the preventive measures that society and government should take into place so that further polarization on religious basis can be met before it erupts into violence. On the other hand, what we also said was that under the ICCPR, we firmly believe that while governments were talking about defamation of religion, there was less addressing the issue of incitement, religious incitement to violence, discrimination, and hatred. And we felt that that needs to be addressed. Looking at the question of freedom of religion, in my statement that I made before the third committee, I talked about warning signs, about prevention, and I also talked about how religion is being used for political purposes, and this is a challenge to governments because you can't stop expression, but you have to be able to meet it with political announcements or political messages that are in the right direction. I talked about indoctrination and vulnerability of children, where children are being indoctrinated into hating other religions, and there are various forums that continue to be used for that, and the government has an obligation under the Convention on the Rights of the Child to protect children from this kind of a mental abuse, if I may put it in that way. I've talked about how children are being used by those who are that think that witchcraft is part of their traditional religion, and children are being tortured in a way on the pretext of using religion to cure them. Voices of women, how women in conflict, which is based on religion, how women during religious extremist ideologies that hit society are most vulnerable, what is happening to them. I've talked about how women have become central to prohibition or allowing of religious symbols. There are countries that simply will punish women if they do not wear a headscarf. And there are other countries where a woman, if she wears a headscarf, will be penalized or sanctioned. And we believe that that has to be proportionate, it has to be balanced. It is the fundamental right of anyone. This is part of expression. As long as that expression is not impinging upon the rights of others, and the same restrictions that are there under freedom of religion or belief in other matters should be applied in case of displaying of religious symbols. Lastly, I would just like to warn that while we are talking about freedom of information and we do talk about the access to information and technology, in some ways this technology is also being used for incitement to violence. And how are we going to counter that? What are the states, do the states have the capacity to do it or not? And it has to be done in a way so that it does not become an abuse of freedom of expression as well. So I think we think that there has to be a higher threshold in terms of prohibition of expression, no matter whether it is through internet, through religious symbols, or through other forms of expression. This is a pattern that I thought had to be brought forward, and the contentions that we see in the global perspective which need to be grappled with. Thank you.